Republican Senate nominee in Georgia has made some false claims which have the candidate on the defensive in recent days. Former football star Herschel Walker is facing off against incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock, a Democrat. Walker previously criticized absentee fathers before admitting that he had 3 previously unacknowledged children of his own. And a recently resurfaced video shows the Trump-endorsed candidate falsely claiming to be a former FBI agent.
Worked for the Port Law Enforcement. Y'all didn't know that either, did you? I spent time at Quantico at the FBI training schools. Y'all didn't know I was an agent. I probably shouldn't tell y'all that. Y'all don't care. But anyway, yeah, I've been in law enforcement for.
For more on this, Tia Mitchell joins us now. She's the Washington correspondent at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Hi, Tia. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
So walk us through what the fallout has been from this video where Walker falsely not only claims to be an FBI agent, but also says he considered shooting someone until I think a bumper sticker told him not to?
Yeah, so it's hard to know where to start. There are a lot of falsehoods that Herschel Walker has said throughout his campaign, resurfaced falsehoods from prior statements, like his statements about the FBI. He's talked about graduating with honors. He did not graduate from college. He left early to pursue his athletic career. A lot of falsehoods about his businesses and other interests. So in general, I would say they amount to the fact that voters can't necessarily depend on Herschel Walker being clear and honest and 100% truthful. He might be stretching the facts about different facets of his personal story. And we have seen that impact voters in Georgia. You know, this is still going to be a close race. Herschel Walker continues to have a lot of support, particularly among Republicans, but there are people who say they are troubled by the fact that they don't necessarily believe he is consistent or truthful at all times. And that matters to voters.
But at this point, he is the Republican nominee. So you've been reporting recently about a shift in strategy for the Walker campaign. What are they considering doing to minimize some of these missteps?
Yes, so the AJC has been reporting a lot about candidate Walker's campaign. New strategists were brought on. Others with the Republican Party that weren't necessarily engaged in his campaign have been brought on to try to steer the ship. They've come up with a new strategy. Before, they were really shielding Herschel Walker. He wasn't making a lot of public appearances. He was not talking to the media. They've taken the handcuffs off on him a little bit. He's ramped up his public schedule. They are allowing media more access to cover those comments. He still is doing mostly friendly media interviews, but he's a little bit more out there in the public than he was. Another thing is they're focusing more on, this is about Warnock. This is about Joe Biden and his low approval ratings. This is about the economy, and trying to take the focus off of Herschel Walker's personal story and focus away from the consistencies around that personal story.
One of the most closely watched races in the country. And then switching gears, there's the Fulton County investigation into former President Trump's attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. There was a setback today, Tia, when a judge ruled that the district attorney cannot question a state senator who served as a fake elector for Mr. Trump. Why not?
Yes, so this goes back to a fundraiser that DA Fani Willis threw a couple of months ago that was in favor of Charlie Bailey. At the time, he was among several Democrats vying for the party's nomination for lieutenant governor. Charlie Bailey did win that primary, and now his opponent is Republican State Senator Burt Jones. And Burt Jones not only is his party's primary candidate for lieutenant governor, but as you mentioned, he's one of those fake electors who was the focus of the special grand jury's investigation. He was recently notified that he is a target of the investigation, meaning he could face charges, and he successfully has petitioned to have DA Willis removed from his case. He says it's a conflict of interest. She supports my political opponent, and she's also investigating me. The judge agreed. He said it just creates bad optics. And the judge says, I don't want anyone to say this investigation is politicized. And therefore, he has said the DA's office cannot question Senator Jones, cannot make determinations about whether he should be charged. There will be a new district attorney that is selected to do that. Right now, that only applies to Senator Jones, though. The other fake electors are still being investigated directly by Fulton County Special Grand Jury. They are being subpoenaed, and of course, other elected officials and Trump insiders are being subpoenaed as well.
Right, and I think there were at least a dozen other fake electors in Georgia, and this doesn't prohibit the DA from questioning them, right? So what exactly is the DA trying to determine at this point?
So it looks like the DA wants to know what were the conversations around this whole process, because we know Georgia's fake electors met in secret. They were directed to not even really be forthcoming with people about what they were doing on that day, where they signed paperwork that looked like they were real electors, knowing they were not, because again, Joe Biden had won the election, not Donald Trump. So there was a lot of secrecy. And I think what the district attorney and the special grand jury wants to know is, who were they talking to? Who told them to act in secret? Who said to do what? And again, the whole purpose is to determine, was this a greater conspiracy that went all the way to the top? Was this something that President Trump himself or some of his insiders like Rudy Giuliani that were directly directing what these fake electors should do? Does that amount to a crime being committed? Those are all things that the special grand jury is looking into.
Very interesting. Well, Tia Mitchell with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, thank you very much for getting us up to speed. We appreciate it.
Thank you.